Welcome back, folks, to the Random Video Blog, where every single Friday I, Graham GSM Matthews, give my rambling thoughts on the wrestling world, share a few stories, etc., etc. Hopefully you guys enjoyed your post-WrestleMania week. WrestleMania last weekend, it was an incredible week. Since the last time we sat here a week ago for my Random Video Blog, where I counted down my top 5 favorite WWE NXT TakeOver matches of all time. If you didn't check that out, be sure to do so here on the channel from last Friday. Since then, we had TakeOver, Hall of Fame, WrestleMania, Raw, SmackDown last night, and just a slew of other things happening right now in the world of wrestling. So it's been a crazy week. I was hoping to do today my favorite post-WrestleMania Raw moments and stuff like that. I might save that for next week. Today is more of a special occasion just because today just so happens to mark the 2-year anniversary of the day the Ultimate Warrior passed away, one of my all-time inspirations, icons, favorite wrestlers, legends, what have you. Hence why I'm wearing my Ultimate Warrior t-shirt here today for today's video. So I figured I would talk about that and kind of tie in that happening, that anniversary to, into today's video. And kind of make it a little bit more personal. Not a top 5 favorite list like I typically do and will be doing, going forward here on the channel, like I said, next week. Hopefully either top 5 favorite or top 5 best post-WrestleMania Raw moments. I'll talk about that a little next week, even though it's a little bit delayed, but nevertheless. So like I said, so to tie into the anniversary from today, 2 years ago today, when the Ultimate Warrior passed away, I figured I would theme today's video blog around that, and making today's video blog about my top 5 biggest inspirations, wrestling inspirations. And this isn't, my favorite wrestlers, and it's kind of like that, but it kind of goes beyond that. And this is more on a personal level, a little more deep than we usually go here in the video blog. But wrestling, I think, for a lot of people is just more than just a form of entertainment. It can be, and it is. It's the ultimate escape from reality for a lot of people, myself included. But I think for a lot of people as well, also myself included, a lot of what you see and who you see on TV and also beyond the ring, beyond the television screen, just not their on-air characters, inspires a lot of people. There's a lot of people, their characters are just them as people that have inspired me. These people included that I'm going to be talking about in a moment or so. I feel like a lot of people, not even just kids or adults or, I'm 20 years old, even, boys, girls, it really doesn't matter. I think a lot of kids look up to their favorite superstars as kind of like comic book heroes growing up. But I think you get to a certain age where you don't really look at John Cena as a superhero anymore. But you look at who he is as a person, what he stands for, and you're inspired by that to not only make yourself better, but to kind of share that inspiration with other people. So again, that's just what it is for me. Wrestling is kind of that avenue for me in a lot of respects, and a lot of people, both, like I said, their characters, who they are as wrestlers, their stories, and I feel like wrestling, as I've talked about here in the video blog multiple times in the past, that I feel like just, speaking for myself, but also speaking for a lot of other people, that a main reason why we watch wrestling is because we can relate to someone on TV, one of the wrestlers, or a women's wrestler, an authority figure, or whoever, any character on the show, any prominent superstar in WWE, TNA, any, wrestling company, what have you. Because that's what I think a lot of people like about wrestling, is that there is somebody for anybody to like. I feel like even if you hate wrestling, if you sit down and watch it, watch an episode of Raw, I'm sure there's at least one person you're going to connect to because you feel like you can relate to their motives. Either you look like them or something like that, just what they aspire to be. You're inspired by that, or you feel like you can relate to their struggles either beyond the ring or on the television screen, like I said. So these are my top 5 biggest wrestling inspirations. So I might as well start out with number 1, the reason why I'm doing this video, the Ultimate Warrior. And of course, I wasn't around when he was running rampant on WWE and becoming the WWE and Intercontinental Champion, and when he was at the peak of his popularity, so to speak, in the late 1980s and early 1990s. I wasn't even born yet. I was not born until 1995. So I was not around. I was not inspired by Warrior as a wrestler or looked up to him as a comic book hero, as many people did, because I wasn't around and that was not my era of wrestling. In fact, I wasn't really aware of him all too much until years after I started watching wrestling, because I only watched WWE for so long, and of course TNA as well, but he had no affiliation with TNA. Not that I didn't know that he existed, but I either didn't really care or didn't really know much about him. Because despite being one of the biggest icons in the late 80s and early 90s, a pulp culture icon, not just wrestling. I mean, you hear his theme at, baseball games and on the radio and stuff like that, and people dress up as him for Halloween, even if they haven't been wrestling fans in years. He was a pulp culture icon, right on the level with Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and Roddy Piper in the late 80s and early 90s. But it was more than beyond that. I mean, other than that, you really didn't hear much about the Warrior in WWE at all. And obviously so, due to their bad blood for almost 10 years. Especially after the DVD came out in 2005, they really didn't bring Warrior up at all. Maybe they name dropped him once or twice, on TV, and that was before the network too, before I could watch all of his matches. So I really either didn't know about the Warrior or didn't really care about the Warrior until around maybe 2011. The summer of 2011, I don't know how I came across it, but I came across his YouTube channel. And I think all the videos are still up there. He deleted them after a while, but I'm pretty sure he re-uploaded most of them, and you can find a lot of them. And his widow, Dana Warrior, who is an amazing person, by the way, still uploads videos of his that have just been sitting in the can for a while. Just like archive footage and stuff when he was still alive, and a lot of inspirational stuff. And this was before I personally kind of adopted my own positive mental attitude and kind of shaped my optimistic outlook on life. This was many months before that. I feel like he was a major factor in helping me adopt the positive attitude that I have today, and just watching his videos. And at that point, when I was introduced to his YouTube channel, and this was also kind of in between the videos that he was posting with homophobic remarks, and he was by no means the perfect person. If anything, he was kind of a bad person in many respects from many of the things that he said. But at the same time, and I feel like those kind of get the spotlight when these other videos that I watch don't really. And like the inspirational stuff that he did, and I remember sitting down for one night in the middle of the summer of 2011 watching a 45-minute video that he did, just giving people advice and answering questions and stuff like that. And at that point in time, when I was introduced to his channel, like I said, I was going through a really tough time. 2011 was probably easily the worst year of my life. So it couldn't have come at a better time when I was introduced to the Warrior, and just hearing his inspirational words about passion and stuff like that, just being intense about life, is just really, really resonated with me. And that really, easily my biggest inspiration of all time, just even beyond wrestling, but especially wrestling. So obviously I couldn't have been happier when he was finally brought back to the WWE in 2014 to be a part of the Hall of Fame. Loved his speech, loved him, showing up at Mania, loved him, on Raw the next night, and his very heartfelt speech before he passed away the next day. And I talked about it then. You can watch the video here on the channel, one of the first few video blogs that I did, kind of at the start of the series. 2 years ago at this point, I almost said 4 years ago, but 2 years ago at this point, and I was as devastated as anybody. Not for the fact that I grew up watching him, but just for the incredible impact that he had in my life, for someone that I have never met before either. And I almost had the chance to back in 2012 at a Northeast Wrestling show, along with Matt Hardy, who we'll be talking about shortly as well. And I didn't go. I couldn't go. I really wanted to go, but I couldn't go just because I didn't have a ride, or I don't know, something was going on that I couldn't go. And I don't really regret it, but, it really sucks. And even to this day, I regret kind of not going, just because I would have loved to have met the Warrior. But at any rate, just having him pass away was really, really hard for a couple days for me, just because of the impact that he had in my life. But just kind of celebrating the legacy that was the Ultimate Warrior from 2 years ago today, like I said, and kind of honoring the memory, and the fact they have the Warrior Award now and the statue, and they have all this stuff up in the network about the Warrior, really makes me very proud. But anyway, so moving forward here to other inspirations that I've had in wrestling, in no real order, by the way, either. And this one might come as a surprise. The Miz. He is also among my favorite wrestlers. I know he's among the most despised wrestlers on the current roster by the IWC wrestling fan base, whatever you want to call them. Them, us, whatever. The Miz, I started liking him as a wrestler. He became one of my favorites, I think, is almost as early as when I first started watching in 2008. Late 08, the stuff with the dirt sheet, on the dirt sheet with John Morrison, I thought was great. But I think another aspect of The Miz I really feel like doesn't get the recognition or the spotlight or attention it deserves is the fact that he's constantly going, something I try to model myself after as well, really not having a dull moment and really always doing something, always being productive. Miz is that the epitome of what a media guy should be in WWE, going from media appearance to media appearance and always keeping himself busy. When he's not doing this, he's doing that. Always staying busy, and that's something I really find inspiring about The Miz. Even his character I really enjoy, the Hollywood character I get a real kick out of. But even beyond that, with the stuff that he does beyond the ring, and just even beyond, I think you can also kind of be inspired too, and a little bit as well, the bully aspect that I was never really bullied, so I didn't really attach myself to that. That's not really why I'm inspired by him, but the fact that he was hazed when he first came into wrestling by JBL, and he's told that story a million times. But like I said, the aspect of The Miz that I'm inspired by, that serves as an inspiration to me, is the fact that he's always constantly doing these things. He's always productive. He's always getting shit done. He doesn't rest. No west of the rear, and that's exactly how I try to model myself after as well. So something I can be inspired by The Miz for. So also kind of along those lines, Chris Jericho is another huge wrestling inspiration of mine for kind of the same reasons. But in addition to that, everything I said about The Miz, that not only is he always staying busy, but he tries to kind of master different things. And he's talked about this before in his various books, which are amazing, by the way. Mick Foley I would also include on this list for just his writing style, which I kind of model myself after. I feel like I kind of write in the same way that he does in his books and in Facebook posts and stuff like that. For Jericho, and like I said, he's talked about this before, in that he doesn't want to be just the wrestler, Chris Jericho the wrestler, or Chris Jericho the author, or Chris Jericho the rock star, or Chris Jericho this, or the TV host, or that, Dancing with the Stars, whatever. A lot of people can say they are a professional wrestler. A lot of people can say they are authors. A lot of people can say they are rock stars. But how many people can say they are wrestling rock star authors? Not very many people. That's what I kind of try to do as well in writing for various different websites, doing the podcast, doing these videos for you guys, having a Facebook and a Twitter, and doing all these other various forms of writing and just video producing and stuff like that. Podcasting, because you got to find that niche market and kind of make yourself different from everyone else that that is doing exactly what you're doing, and your 2 cents are different than someone else's 2 cents. And I feel like Chris Jericho kind of masters that to a T. The master of many trades, or the jack of all trades, master of none, which is the exact opposite of Chris Jericho, I believe, and that he's very, very good, if not great, at almost everything that he does. And again, very inspirational to me in the fact that I try to do many other things as well. And again, specifically his writing style. I feel like the style in which he writes his books is just absolutely amazing. The way he tells stories, I try to tell stories the same way. Not that I kind of copied his style or anything like that. I feel like I was already kind of doing that before I was introduced to his books and started reading his books. And when I read his books, I love them so much, and I'm still in the midst of reading his 3rd book. I just don't have the time, unfortunately. And just reading his books and finding, that I write almost the exact same way, which I find pretty cool. So up next, and I'm sure not a lot of people are going to be happy with this one, but CM Punk. I know he's a quitter, he's a whatever, especially after he left. But even beyond that, we'll go beyond the fact that he might be an asshole or this or that or whatever. But going back, even before the pipe bomb, CM Punk, if you watch his documentary, I love the documentary just because he's a person that cares a lot and also doesn't really care at all. And I feel like I kind of fall in that same category, that he cares a lot about the things he's most passionate about, people he's passionate about, or things that he's passionate about. And then he doesn't really care about the people who don't, who concern themselves too much with disliking him or giving him shit for it. He doesn't really fucking care, which is something I love about Punk, that he just doesn't care. And he's just very open about that, and he's very honest, and he'd rather be brutally honest and come off like an asshole than try to fake and bullshit and stuff. And sometimes that can be a detriment. But I think more often than not, that is something that I personally commend, that I would rather see the brutal, honest truth than just someone just sugarcoat it or just bullshit you, whatever. And Punk, I think, definitely mastered that in his time in WWE, and just him as a person is that exact same way. And a lot like Punk, I'm not really a people person. I'm just not that I'm not social, but I just don't like people. I guess a lot like Brock Lesnar in that respect too. I know he said the same thing. Or at least just not dumb people that show you the respect that you will show them. I feel like those are the people that I want to surround myself with. I don't deal with people who are disrespectful. I don't really deal with that shit at all, just because it's kind of a waste of my time. And Punk is very similar in that respect as well. So there's many different things about Punk that inspire me. Even when I first started to become a fan of his back in 2010, I modeled myself after him in becoming straight edge. Or I already kind of was straight edge. It wasn't like I was drinking before, and then I completely cut it off after I became a fan of CM Punk. I already wasn't drinking to begin with, and I thought it was cool to kind of follow that, but that's just kind of a minor thing. I wrote a whole article about this before on my website about why I'm inspired by Punk, but those are just kind of a few major points. And then finally, Matt Hardy, which is kind of it might be the odd one out here amongst the likes of, former WWE champions, The Miz, Chris Jericho, Ultimate Warrior, and The Miz, Chris Jericho, CM Punk, and The Ultimate Warrior. But Matt Hardy, to me, again, not really his On-air persona. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his on-air persona, and I have been since 2009. But it was around the same time I became a fan of the Warrior in real life as a person. Back in late 2011, when I was going through my tough times as well, I felt like I could relate to Matt Hardy because he was going through something similar. You know, that was back when he was putting up random ass, scary videos, contemplating suicide and all this other weird ass shit on Twitter. Just getting in car accidents and, being belligerently drunk and in public and getting fired from TNA. He was going through a really rough patch in 2011. I feel like not those exact same issues, but I felt like the problems that I was having back then, I could relate to Matt Hardy in that respect, and the fact that he cleaned up his act, got married, had a kid, returned to TNA. He's done a lot of great stuff in the independent scene and in Ring of Honor over the last couple of years, and has really turned his life around in the last 5 or 6 years. Which is something that I greatly am inspired by Matt Hardy for. And having met him, unlike I've never met Miz or any of the other people that I just mentioned, Matt Hardy is someone I can call a friend. I've been able to meet him, I think, 4 times in total. Once in 2012, which was a great experience, meeting him for the first time and telling him that he's a huge inspiration to me. That meant a lot to me for him to be able to hear that. I'm meeting him again 2 years later in 2014. I was able to talk to him for like 10 minutes, which was awesome. Same thing when I met him again last year at a Northeast Wrestling show in August, and then again a couple months later at another Northeast Wrestling show. I met him at all Northeast Wrestling shows, but for the 4 times I met him, he was even more awesome each time. Saying that we follow each other on Twitter. He follows my work sometimes. We're Facebook friends, so he's a really, really down-to-earth dude, and like I said, I'm greatly inspired by him. All that he's done and just turning his life around in the span of time that he did from 5 years ago to present day. So those are 5 people from the wrestling world that inspire me. I'm sure there's many, many more. I mentioned Mick Foley. I'm sure there's a lot more. There's a lot of favorite wrestlers that I have too, like I said. And I feel like all my favorite wrestlers, they are my favorite, not just because, they're great wrestlers and stuff, they're great in the ring or great on the mic. But I feel like there's aspects of their characters that I can relate to. Like I said with Jericho and Miz and Punk and so on and so forth. But who inspires you from the wrestling world, either their on-air persona or even just beyond the ring? Like I said, with a lot of these people that I just shared stories about. I would love to hear your list in the comment section below on Facebook. Give the Page Nail thumbs up at facebook.com/Graham.Matthews. On Twitter, be sure to tweet me at WrestleRant. And like I said earlier, folks, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll be back next Friday with my top 5 best or favorite, I have no idea yet, post-WrestleMania Raw moments. We had that this past weekend Raw. I thought it was a great episode. Really enjoyed it. I might include some moments from Monday's show in that video. We'll have to wait and see, but stay tuned until next Friday for that episode, that edition of the Random Video Blog. But until then, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.